March 20, 1944. The waters of the East China Sea churn beneath the blackened sky as the battle-hardened crew aboard the Japanese battleship Yamato makes their way through treacherous waters, racing toward a battle that will redefine naval combat. Captain Kenji Takahashi stands before the plotting table, watching as the latest reports come in. The American fleet has launched devastating airstrikes, and over 200 American aircraft have already been destroyed in the skies above their targets. But now, something new is afoot, a force of warships fleeing northward, escaping the relentless air assault. Vice Admiral Hiroshi Yamamoto, commander of the Imperial Fleet, has made a bold decision that stuns even his own staff. He wants a surface battle, a decisive clash between battleships. The remaining Japanese ships, the destroyers Mikasa and Noki, along with the auxiliary cruiser Akagi Maru, are battered and retreating for safety. But Takahashi, alongside the mighty Yamato and its sister ship Musashi, are about to enter the fray. What follows will go down in history as one of the longest surface engagements in naval history, setting a precedent for a new era of warfare. However, the clash will reveal more than the strength of Japan's battleships. It will prove that their enemies, the Americans, have harnessed something far more dangerous than superior armor or bigger guns. A technological advantage in fire control that makes the impossible seem commonplace. The Japanese Imperial Navy had long prided itself on its ability to close in and engage the enemy at close range, where the power of their battleships could be fully realized. This strategy, called Kanai Kessen, was grounded in the belief that the decisive battle would be won at medium ranges, where the training and courage of the crew would have the greatest impact. As a result, Japanese naval officers had long discounted the potential of long-range gunnery. For years they had worked under the assumption that battles would be decided at ranges where the human element, trained crews, sharp eyesight, and fighting spirit, could turn the tide. The belief in Kanai Kessen made long-range fire seem impractical, even wasteful. But this belief would be shattered when the American fleet demonstrated its capabilities. The morning began with Japanese reconnaissance planes confirming a growing American presence just north of Okinawa. The Japanese Navy had already suffered heavy losses in the air, but they had not yet seen the full extent of American capabilities. The Yamato and Musashi, the two most powerful battleships ever built by Japan, were now heading towards the American fleet. Admiral Takahashi, determined to demonstrate Japan's superior battle tactics, ordered his forces to engage. His staff hesitated. Why risk the battleships when carrier aircraft could accomplish the mission? But Takahashi believed the world needed to see that Japan's battleships could still prove decisive. He formed Task Group 57, consisting of the Yamato, Musashi, heavy cruisers Mikoma and Chikuma, and a handful of destroyers. The Japanese ships set out in pursuit of their American counterparts, who had already gained a considerable lead. At 28 knots, the Japanese ships were fast, but they were no match for the American carriers and destroyers ahead of them. By noon, the Japanese fleet had been located. Scout planes from the American carriers reported their position, still over 50 miles from the American ships, just on the edge of the radar's ability to detect them. But it didn't matter. The Americans, armed with radar-guided fire control, could strike from far beyond the horizon. As the Japanese ships approached, they found themselves unable to track their enemies effectively. While the Yamato and Musashi were equipped with advanced optical rangefinders, they were useless at these extreme distances, where visibility was limited. In contrast, the Americans had long mastered the use of radar to direct their fire, allowing them to fire with pinpoint accuracy, even at vast distances where the enemy was barely visible. The battle began with the American battleships Arizona and Pennsylvania unleashing a barrage from over 30 miles away. The shells arced through the sky, impacting the Japanese fleet with devastating precision. Despite their heavy armor, the Yamato and Musashi were helpless against the relentless onslaught. The fire control systems on the American ships calculated the exact trajectory of each shot, factoring in the ship's speed, weather conditions, and even the Earth's rotation, ensuring a lethal strike each time. The Japanese warships tried to retaliate, but their optical rangefinders were ineffective at such distances. The Yamato, firing its massive 18-inch guns, launched salvo after salvo, but the shots fell far short of their targets. Meanwhile, the Americans fired continuously, each salvo closer and closer to its mark. After several failed attempts, the Japanese fleet began to falter. The Akagi Maru, a small auxiliary cruiser, was the first to be hit. Torpedoes fired from the American destroyers Fletcher and Gearing found their mark, sinking the vessel in mere minutes. At 1:30 p.m., the Musashi was struck by multiple rounds from the American battleships. The 16-inch shells tore through her thick armor, setting off explosions that rocked the ship. Captain Takahashi ordered a full retreat, but it was too late. The Musashi listed heavily, and by 2:15 p.m. she had rolled over and sunk to the bottom of the sea. Meanwhile, the Yamato continued to fight, but it too was taking heavy damage. As the engagement continued, it became clear that Japan's strategy of closing the distance and engaging at medium ranges was no longer viable. The Americans had demonstrated their superiority not just in terms of firepower, but in the ability to strike with deadly precision from long distances. The battle, which had initially seemed like a clash between two powerful fleets, quickly became a one-sided slaughter. Within 90 minutes, the Japanese fleet had lost two of its most powerful warships, and the remaining destroyers were retreating into the distance. When the battle concluded, the tally was grim for Japan. Two of their battleships were sunk, along with several smaller vessels. Over 1,000 Japanese sailors were lost. In contrast, the Americans had suffered no casualties and had only minor damage to their ships. The Japanese Navy, once the most feared in the Pacific, was now reeling from the realization that their traditional tactics were outdated. In the following days, reports from surviving Japanese sailors began to filter back to Tokyo. They described the terrifying accuracy of the American fire, and how the battleships, which had once been the pride of the Japanese fleet, had been rendered impotent by a technological revolution they had not seen coming. For Japan, the loss at Okinawa was a devastating blow, not just in terms of ships lost, but in the realization that their entire naval strategy had been built on faulty assumptions. The battle demonstrated the irrelevance of traditional battleship combat and highlighted the superiority of American technology, specifically their radar-guided fire control systems. The engagement at Okinawa became a turning point, not just in the war but in the history of naval combat. It was a stark reminder that technological advancement could render even the most formidable weapons obsolete. The battle was a wake-up call for the Japanese, signaling the beginning of the end of their naval dominance in the Pacific.